Hello friend, I am Rahat Hassan, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Before going to start this particular lecture, I once again welcome all of you in this online course on international relations in a changing world. This lecture is particularly about international political economy, and in that process we have already given one or two lectures on this particular topic, that is international political economy and rise of international political economy in international relations and the various approaches to understand the topic international political economy in the domain of international relation. So, in this process we have already discussed the basic conception or basic aspect of international political economy. What exactly political economy is in the domain of international relations, what are the factors that pave the way for the rise of the discussion about the relationship between politics and economy that we called as international political economy. The various factors that contributed for the rise of this particular topic, that is international political economy in international relations. Friends, we have already discussed the things in detail in the last one or two classes. We also discussed in detail about the various theoretical aspect or theoretical understanding over the topic international political economy. In that sense, we have already discussed the traditional approach to international political economy. In that we discussed about liberal approach, mercantile approach, and lastly the Marxian approach to look at the relationship between economics and politics. So, we have already covered that aspect of international political economy which we are going to, or which we are talking about related to international political economy. In this particular lecture, what we will discuss that new approaches or the contemporary approaches in the domain or in the subject matter related to international political economy. So, the new approaches or the contemporary approach to international political economy, we will discuss that, and we will also discuss the theoretical debate or the debate that are concerned to international political economy, like dependency theory, the hegemonic stability theory in international relations, and we will also discuss the international political economy, the course or the discussion of international political economy in the globalized era. So, in that these are the things we will discuss in this particular lecture, that international political economy. So, before going to start this particular topic, that is the new approaches to international political economy, as I told earlier that the traditional approach to international political economy we have already discussed that. So, today's topic is more basically about the new approaches to international political economy and the debate that are concerned in the related to international political economy so far as globalization is concerned. So, these are the things that we will discuss today. So, before going to start that particular topic, that is the modern approach to international political economy, we just try to refresh our memory that what we have discussed in the last one or two classes related to international political economy. So, as we have discussed that the international political economy, the subject matter of international political economy basically in international relations is what it's referring a kind of relationship between politics and international relations. In order to know or in order to establish that particular relation between politics and economy in the domain of international relations, we discussed that up to Cold War period, the political science or more particularly the discipline of international relations, friends, that basically focusing on the political aspect or the political relationship in international relations, the political relations among the state in international relations, that was the major dimension or the major aspect to look at the international relations or the relations among the state in the nation state system. So, the concept of war, the concept of peace, the political dimensions of relations among the state, that was the major concern or the major subject matter that the discipline of political science was focusing on. But after the Cold War period, or more precisely after 1970s and before that also, that we have already discussed the factors that contributed for the development or for the rise of international political economy in the domain of international relations. So, after the end of the Cold War and before that after the end of the Second World War, international relations was more focused about political dimension, but at the same time some economic activities were also happening among the state or in the global economic system. So, in that context, the various factors that contributed for the rise of the Bretton Woods system and also the rise of the third world nations or the developing nations in the international system, various things which is related to the economic aspect of the relations among the state, for example, national economy, development of the national economy, economic growth, cooperations among the state, so far as the liberal interpretation of international relation is concerned. So, the basic point is that up to the Cold War period, more focus was on the political conflicting aspect, or war and peace were the major concern. As we know, the Cold War conflict between the two superpower USA and former USSR. But at the same time, the political economic aspect, example the economic engagement, development, underdevelopment, poverty, economic growth, national economy, that were the things state sovereignty and state engagement in the economic aspect of the relations in the nation state system. So, that aspect were also given much importance in the discourse of international relations as well. But after 1970s onwards and more precisely after the after the end of the Cold War, that is the globalization era, in that aspect the economic engagement of the state or the economic aspect of relations of the states in the international system that we called as the global economic system, that aspect of international relations given much importance compared to the political aspect, conflicting, war and peace. But at the same time, these are the core subject matter of international relations, but the economic aspect of relations in the nation state system, that aspect were equally or even more given importance compared to the traditional conception or the core conception that we call as the traditional conception of IR, war, peace and political dimension of international relations. So, that we have discussed in detail in the last classes. Friends, now we also have discussed in that sense the three important traditional approaches to international political economy, how that relationship in the nation state system, that the political economic dimension of relationship of the state or in the nation state system understood by the traditional approaches to international political economy. So, in that sense we see or we have discussed the mercantile approach that discussed about that or the major concern or the major focuses of the traditional approach, more particularly the mercantile approach to international political economy. They consider that the state are the main actors in the international system, and the state trying to enhance national power, because power is the means and power also is the end to fulfill the objective of the state that we call as the national interest of that particular nation. To achieve that sort of national objective, state trying to enhance its power, and in that sense state will not compromise with any sort of values in the nation state system or any sort of things which are go against the enhancing or fulfilling the objective of the state, that is the national power and the national interest. At the same time, state may try to engage with the other state in a positive manner, that is the possibility, but the concept of relative gain is there, and that decide the decision of the state, which means that in engaging the state in the nation state system in a cooperative manner, the state would try to also fulfill the relative gain kind of approach while the state interacting with the other state, which means that in that interaction, if the other state is getting more and more benefit, then the state will automatically would decline that sort of relations of the state in the nation state system. And that particular mercantile approach is in short argued that the political interest and the national interest is more paramount, and the economic dimension of the relations of the state in the nation state system is subordinate to that. Number one. Number two, the second important argument in that regard is that the hegemonic stability concept is there, which means that the rules, regulations of the engagement of the state in the economic matters in the nation state system, that would be decided by the major power, and the rest of the power will follow that sort of rules and regulations, which will be created and approved by the hegemonic power or the superpower or the dominating power in the nation state system. The another interpretations that we have discussed in that particular class or the particular discussions over the traditional approach to international relations or traditional approach in international relations so far as the international political economy approach is concerned, is the liberal interpretation or the liberal approach of international political economy. In that sense, they argued that it is not the state that are main actor, rather it is the individuals, groups and the companies, the companies, that is the entrepreneur or that capitalist companies, they are the main actors in the international relations, and their interaction, their preferences, that are more important, and the state will have not much control, not dominancy in the state economy or the world economy. Rather, the world economy would function in according to the market principles, and there will be a free trade, free commerce and more interactions among these sort of agencies or organizations that operate in the nation state system. So, it paved the way for the free trade, free commerce, liberalization, that sort of thing, that are the main argument which is put forwarded by the liberal interpretation approach or liberal interpretation of international political economy in the discourse of international relations. And the state will have the not much control in that sense, the rather state will act as a facilitator, will only regulate the national economy as well as the world economy, and the world economy is more regulated by the various international agencies like IMF, other Bretton Woods system institutions like GATT or WTO. So, these sort of new liberal institutions that will be there in the nation state system, and they will decide or control the world economy. So, the world economy would function in according to the principles of these institutions. They will provide institutional backup and platform to regulate the world economy, and private entrepreneurs, private business individuals, they will perform a kind of actors, they will perform like an actor in the international economy. So, the state will have the less control, and the state, the market will take care of itself, and it will give benefit to every individuals, every groups, every states as well in the nation state system. Unlike that, there is another interpretation of international political economy approach in traditional way, is the mercantile approach, neoliberal approach, and third is the Marxian approach to international political economy. The Marxian approach to international political economy, its focus more about a kind of world economy or the capitalist economy rather. That capitalist economy is a more important actor compared to state and some other institutions in the case of mercantile or liberal approach. The Marxist approach focusing more on the capitalist economy, and they argued that it is that capitalist economy is what? It's a kind of minority or a kind of capitalist group which is very less in number. In every state that groups are there, that groups is called as the ruling class or the capitalist class, and they actually control the state economy, and they actually also trying to influence the nation state system in terms of economy as well. So, there is a competition between the groups, that is the ruling groups or the capitalist class find everywhere in the state, and their relations, their aspirations, their objective is the main concern, and that decide the economic political engagement in the international system. In doing so, the Marxian approach, for example, Karl Marx, Lenin, and later on the various new Marxists like Gramsci, Robert Koch, other, they argued that sort of relations or that sort of control economy by the capitalist class in the nation state system, that is uneven in nature, that economic progress is uneven and unequal in nature, which means that those capitalist class who belongs to the major powers or the stronger powers or the superpowers or the industrialized state, these class having the potential, having the capacity to control the world economy, and the state, those class, the ruling class that fall in the category of the smaller state, there will be a kind of exploitations done by the core state, that is the industrialized state, over the other state that fall under the category of peripheral state. So that sort of exploitation is done, and that is the major explanation of the Marxian approach to international political economy. So that is the kind of discussions that we have already discussed in detail in the last classes over international political economy introduction and the traditional approach to international political economy. So in nutshell, what we are trying to say is that there are various interpretations about the relationship between economics and politics so far as the domain of international relation is concerned. Now friend, we will discuss about another important explanation or another explanations done by the new approaches to international political economy that we call as the new approach or modern approach to international political economy in the domain of international relations. That is the main discussion that we are trying to do so. So in that sense, we have already covered or refreshed our memory regarding the basic conception about international political economy, and also we discussed about the three important traditional approaches to international political economy. So as a result, what we find in that particular discussion is that traditional approach to international political economy give more concern about the normative concern and analytical questions, that the normative values, which means that why the statecraft or the state interact in a particular way, what were the factors behind the interactions of the state with the other state so far as the economic dimension of the relations in the international system is concerned. So that was more normative in nature, more analytical in nature, and the focus was more about the macro type of analysis, that how state interact, what are the relationship between the politics and economic aspect of the international relations in nation state system. That modern approach or the new approaches to international political economy is focusing more about the factors and the preferences. So it is more a kind of micro sort of analysis of the international relation so far as the international political economy is concerned. So in that sense, we can say that a particular state, the decision makers or the policy makers or the various individuals involved in the decision making process of the government or particular state, the decision is impacted by which factors? What are the preferences? What are the utility? What are the personal experience of these individuals or the groups who are in the making of decision related to the or on behalf of the state. So the governmental functions influenced by which factors? The individuals who are there to take the decision on behalf of the state or the government. What are their preferences, what are their choices, what are their factors, what are their experience so far as to make the decision by these individuals who are in the business of decision making that we call as the foreign policy of a particular state. So in that context, we see the individual preferences as well as the various other institutions which are performing or which are functioning within the domestic sphere of the economy of every states in the nation state system, how that institution is actually influencing the decision of the state or the decision of the government. So that is methodological in nature, and also they are trying to explain more international economy or the political economic relation in the domain of international relations in terms of the preferences, choices of the individuals and also the institutions that influencing the decision of the government and the decision of the state. So it is more a kind of macro analysis, knowing the surroundings, knowing the social world where the individuals and the institutions affected, influences by the various social, political, economic factors and how that impacted in the decision making process of the government so far as when the state interacting in the domain of international relation or in the domain of international economy. So this is the basic differences, kind of differences between the modern approach and the traditional approach to international political economy in the domain of international relations. So in that regard, we can see that there is a broader conception or broader explanation to understand the micro type of analysis between politics and economy in the domain of international relations. So, in that sense, on the basis of preferences, institutions and the social world, how that the system or how the world system or world economic system is actually influenced by. So, in that sense, there is a two broader categorization of the new modern or the new approaches to international political economy. In that sense, friend, one is the rational choice model or the rational choice or the new utilitarian conception regarding to understand the political economic dimension of interaction in international relation from the perspective of international political economy. So, one model or the one approach is that is the rational choice or the new utilitarian. Friends, the another categorization or another aspect to understand international political economy from the perspective of modern or the new approaches to international political economy in international relation is the social constructivism or constructivist approach as a modern approach to international political economy in the domain of international relations. So, broadly we find that there are two aspects to understand or to do the micro analysis of the international political economy, that is the relationship between political factors or the economic factors, that is the rational choice, and another is the social constructive approach. So, friends, now we will discuss the first aspect, that is the rational choice actor or the rational choice model to understand international political economy. So, in that category we see that already we have discussed there are a kind of two aspect or the two way to understand or to explain the modern approach within rational choice. One is the rational choice or the new utilitarian, and another is the institutionalist approach, institutionalism or institutionalist approach as a modern approach to international political economy. So, one is the institution and another is the group, that is the people or the group, how that group is actually influencing the decision of the state or the decision of the government. So, in that sense, friends, we identify that the political economy is the application of the rational choices to groups within the state, that is the major they are the major actors or the major concern that was put forwarded by the rational choice or the new utilitarian approach to international political economy. They are arguing that in terms of what, as I said already, that modern approach or the new approach to international political economy, the major concern or the major focus that create a distinction between traditional and modern is that in the modern sense there is a micro analysis. In the traditional approach, that the focus was more on the macro analysis. So, in the macro analysis there are two aspects, two relation, one is the state and another is the market. So, there was a factors or the what are the relation between the market and the state, that is politics and economy, and in order to establish that relations there are three interpretation or three aspects that was put forwarded by the traditional approach to international political economy. But in that sense, when we do the macro sense of analysis, where the preferences, the choices of the actors, how that choices or how that experience of the individuals working or the groups that playing an important role within the domestic sphere of the state, how they are influencing the decision of the state or decision of the government. So, in that sense we focusing that the traditional approach in the domain of rational choice, they focusing more about the various groups which are playing an important role so far as the domestic economic sphere of the state. So, for example, the various non-state actors are there which are engaged in the economic aspect or the economic activities of the state, which means that the various companies, the various non-state companies, non-state economic companies engaging in economy, the individuals or the entrepreneurs, the private entrepreneurs, they are working in the domestic sphere of the state. So, their experiences, their choices and their objective or their private concern, that are important factors that impacting the decision of the government and decision of the state, which means that those people who are actually engaged in the decision making process on behalf of the government and the state, their choices, their experience and their preferences is actually influencing the foreign policy of the state, and that while making any sort of foreign policy, so far as the economic aspect of the state engagement with the other state or the state engagement in the international economy is concerned, the aspiration of the groups or the individuals which are actually influencing the decision making process, that are the major concern of the rational choice model, which means that if we can take the example of the bureaucrats, we can take the example of the various ministers, we can take the example of various other persons also. While they are making any sort of decision, they are influenced by the various factors, or their preferences are actually influenced by the various factors, and that factors and that influences which the influenced by the various players, that is the various economic groups, the various economic hubs, the various economic organizations, they actually influencing the decision of the statecraft. So that preferences of these peoples and the preferences of the various statecrafts who are actually taking decision on behalf of the state and the state, what are the factors, what the preferences are, that are the important concern of the rational choice or the utilitarian, neo-utilitarian approaches to international political economic approaches concern. So for political economics, the world economy is characterized by competition among the vested interest in different kinds of states, and the core actors are interest groups formed within the domestic economy of the state. The key driving forces is rational choice at the level of groups within the domestic economy, responding to the changes in international economy. Political economists are not concerned with the theorizing about the condition necessary for international order. So as we have already discussed about that, the main actors is the interest groups, the various companies, economic companies, their choices, their preferences is actually impacting the decision making of the government or the decision making of the state, and the actors, that is the interest groups, working or playing an important role within the domestic economy of a particular state, they are influenced by the international factors as well. So in that sense, if the state is taking any sort of decision regarding the tax imposition, tax kind of things, or any sort of regulations so far as the domestic economy is concerned, the interest of that interest group which are directly influences or impacted by the policies, the economic policies of the government or the economic policies of the state. So in doing so, the state, the government their decision are actually influenced by the interest group. They pressurize the government, or they influencing the government in the light of their interest, in the light of their preferences, choices. They try to influence the decision of the government, and the experience of these people who are taking decision, their choices, their preferences in according to the preferences of the various interest group, a decision is taken by the state and the government. So that basically that particular theory or the particular approach to international political economy, that is the rational choice or the new utilitarian model or approach to international political economy, they focusing about the preferences and the choices of the various actors which are interest group, which are non-state, which are economic interest groups are there. So their choice is there. So in nutshell we can say that particular approach is not concerned much about to create a kind of international system or international order to respond the world economy or to respond the international economic system. Rather, they are more concerned about the preferences and the choices or the utility of the actors who are actually engaged in the economic system or in the international economic system. So these are the basic concern and the basic things that we need to discuss or we need to understand in that way. One of the important approaches within modern or new approaches to international political economy, that is the rational choice or the new utilitarian choice or the new utilitarian model or approach to understand international political economy. Now friend, we will discuss the another important aspects within that particular approaches to international political economy, that is the rational choice approach to international political economy. Within that there is another aspect to look at, that is the institutionalism, which means that the application or which referring the application of rational choice to state. In the first category we refer or they refer that approach the theorists who argued that sort of approaches to international political economy, they consider that the various interest groups in the domestic economy, their preferences, their choices are major concern, and from that perspective they try to understand the dynamics of politics and international relations. So, and in the next aspect or the another version or another aspect to look at the international political economy from the modern perspective is the institutionalism. In that they see the core actors are government and the institutions to whom they delegate power. That is the main concern or the main argument of the institutionalism, which means that in that category state or the government is an actor in the international economic system, but they actually creating certain institutions. That institution is what? These institutions are in the business of economy, in the business of international economy rather. So in that sense, that sort of classification or that thing, that is institutionalism, is more about or more related to the liberal approach or the liberal understanding of international political economy, where the institution which is more important and that international institution is actually controlling the dynamics or the relations between politics and economy, that is the international political economy. In that the institution is very important. So in here also the role of the state is what? The role is the state role is important, is a very important role in the international economy, but the state is not largely in the business of international economy or the world economy. Rather, state is doing what? State is creating institution, various institutions, or state become a member of the various international institutions, like for example IMF, for example WTO, for example GATT, like that kind of things. So the role of the state is to create various institutions, and the state power or state monopoly to engage in the economic system, these states are actually transferring and delegates their power to that particular institutions which they are created or become a member of this institution, and their engagement, these institution is actually engaged in the business of international economy. So the state is, the role of the state is only to create the institutions and delegates that power, that is the power to make any sort of decision regarding the regulations and controlling the international economy. So that power is delegated to that institution, and in that way the institutions is actually taking decision or engage in the international economic system. So in that sense, the driving forces of the rational choices at the level of state motivated by potential gain from cooperations among the various states through that institutions, which means that the preferences, the choices of these institutions is actually what is actually influencing the decision of the states as well. So the state will get or engage through that institution, and the state will delegate that power to that sort of institutions. So the institutionalists regard the world economy as an arena of interstate cooperations. The state will cooperate to each other, or state will cooperate with other state in the nation state system. So there is no conflict, rather the cooperations, and they see the core actors as government and the institutions to whom that they delegates power, which means that state is the main actors and institutions that they are created, and the state has actually delegated that sort of power of the state to that institution. And the key driving forces as rational choice at the level of state motivated by the potential gain from cooperations, means the state will cooperate and through that institution, and every state will cooperate to get the benefit, mutual benefit out of it. For institutionalists, the key conditions for order is the existence of international institutions which permit cooperations to continue. As we can take the example of IMF and that sort of WTO and other similar sort of organizations, where states is actually creating institution, they delegates power to that institution, and through that state trying to cooperate to get the mutual benefits out of the engagement of the state through that institution in the world economy or in the international economic system. So friend, we have discussed two important aspects, that is, one is the group as an actors, the economic groups as an actors, their choices, how influence the decision of the government, and the another aspect to look at, that is the institutionalist approach, how the state is actually creating, what are the preferences, choices of the state or the government to create that institution, and through that institution how state is actually engaged with the other state in the nation system or in the international economic system. So these are the two important aspects or explanation of the important approaches or the modern approaches to international political economy. Now friend, we will discuss the another domain that fall under the category of modern or new approaches to international political economy, that is the constructivist approach to look at the international political economy. So in that sense, we also can we can also take the references of the Marxian approach to international political economy, and we call that sort of constructivist approach is the new Marxian approach to international political economy as well. So the constructive focuses on ideas, knowledge and historical circumstances that shape identity and preferences in the global economy and the boundaries within which international economic relations take place.